Hello there, my fellow Americans. This is Jean-Pierre Ady Fenyo. Jean-Pierre Ady Fenyo, the philosopher of ethics, otherwise known to many of you as the original New York City free advice man, who was written up in the August 17, 1987 issue of The New Yorker, Talk of the Town, an article written by Alec Wilkinson. For many years I have tried to get back into the media limelight, and with the hope that I could perhaps influence American opinion on issues of relevance to us Americans. But what does that mean, American? It's a big story, isn't it? Because people in South America are American, people in North America are American, in between. What is it to be an American in the United States of America today? And why am I talking to you at all? I'll tell you why. I was born in Washington, D.C. in 1964. July 23, to be precise. Not far from the White House. A place called George Washington University Hospital. The building is no longer there. That's another story. Anyway, I'm talking to you because I'm concerned about something very, very important. Something that could easily result in what they call a MELA, a mass extinction level event. A mass extinction level event. And that is the policies of certain people in Washington. Actually, certain person sitting not far from where I was born. Let's be honest. The United States of America was founded by people who had an idea. And that idea was to be different from what was going on in Europe at the time. Their idea was unity in diversity. The idea was that you didn't have to be religious to be a good citizen. The idea was separation of church and state, or to be more broad about it, separation of religion, personal conviction, philosophy, personal philosophy, and secular state. In other words, they founded our United States of America with a preamble to the Constitution that says pretty much that every human being has certain universal, undeniable, inalienable human rights. Certain rights. The French Revolution also has this declaration, les droits des hommes. What is it about these revolutions, the American, the French Revolution, that so touches us all even today? Yes, we're talking about a time when republics were founded, modern nation-state republics were founded, and feudal systems were mostly pushed to the side, if not totally obliterated. We're talking about great philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and, well, before him, Baruch Spinoza. In fact, some Dutch people would say, ik ben de nieuw Spinoza. Ik ben de nieuw Baruch Spinoza, philosopher der ethics. Okay, but doesn't matter. Let's be frank. The United States of America is being endangered by those who do not understand the most basic, fundamental principles of our great founding Constitution, who do not understand the idea that in order to form a more perfect republic, a more perfect United States of America, we must always subscribe to the principle that every single individual person, every human being, every person, must be respected in every sense of the word. To respect somebody means to respect their human rights, their right to live, to have their own ideas about things, not to have imposition, not to be imposed upon by what? Oligarchs, dictators, fascists. Fascism is opposite to what the founding fathers and mothers of the United States had in mind. This is not to say that they were without contradictions. They had plenty of contradictions and there was hypocrisy. I don't want to get into discussions about Thomas Jefferson and his slaves or any of that, or Benjamin Franklin's efforts to stop it. That's for another time. But we are in grave danger because people have forgotten what fascism, what Nazism, these are all forms of fascism, what oligarchy, what theocracy, what plutocracy, what kleptocracy, idiocracy means. We live in a time when people have become complacent in their thinking. Critical thinking is very, very rare these days. True intellectuals are few and far between to be found. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons for this. One of them is technology. All this wonderful technology has one single major drawback. It allows a very few people with a lot of money to make even more money and siphon it off, take it away from the public benefit, to put it away in offshore accounts like in the Cayman Islands and elsewhere. And these people are trying to undermine, not all of them, not all the wealthy, but most of them, are trying to undermine our democracies, our freedoms, our liberties, our human rights. Because they know that to enslave a person, you have to deceive them, you have to confuse them, you have to manipulate and control them. And they can't do that if there are a lot of middle-class educated people. The United States of America needs to go back to the idea of a highly educated middle class. That is what the Democrats in the modern 20th century tried to do. That's what Franklin Delano Roosevelt, by the way, with the help of Fiorello LaGuardia, who was a Republican mayor of New York, elected with the help of the Socialist Party in New York. Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Fiorello LaGuardia and many others at that time were trying to put an end to the horrors of the Great Depression. Now, throughout the world, in Europe and the United States especially, the effects of the global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008 have devastated lives that were already harmed by the trickle-down policies of Reaganomics, of Ronald Reagan and his selling out the Republican Party wholesale to a bunch of interests. But there is another layer of reality behind all of this. And even the Democratic Party of the United States, which I support more or less, has its problems. What do we need to do? We need to teach ethics to each other. We need to teach ethics at all levels of education, beginning in primary school, elementary, and going on to high school and college. Ethics is very important. Baruch Spinoza was the famous Portuguese-Dutch-Jewish philosopher who was excommunicated by the rabbis of Amsterdam, of the Sephardi community, actually by all the rabbis, for speaking out and saying, wait, if God is all good, then why is there human suffering? And his answer was that God is all love and good, but the idea of a God that knows each one of us personally and can intervene, solve our problems directly like a magician doesn't exist. When Einstein was asked, do you believe in God, sir? Professor Einstein said, if you mean by God the God of Baruch Spinoza, then yes. But if you mean some entity who plays dice with the universe, then no. I might be paraphrasing Albert Einstein. Let's be clear about one thing. The United States needs to get back to its understanding of basic words and meanings. There is no room for fascists in a democratic society's electoral process. It is all perfectly fine to have freedom of speech, and that's in fact fundamental. But it is not freedom of speech to use public places and public spaces and public institutions of government and otherwise that are public for the promotion of ideas that are meant to divide, oppress, repress, suppress, conquer, meant to create fascism, anti-democracy. Yes, you can say whatever you want, even in a public place, but the minute you start saying that I'm going to take away somebody else's right to free speech simply on the basis of their race, religion, ethnicity, etc., socioeconomic status, then we have to say no. Freedom of speech cannot include the right to undermine the very principle and institutions that established our United States of America. And at this time, that is exactly what is being done. People like Rupert Murdoch and others have been undermining our democracies with a bunch of commercialist, selfish media interests. And those interests have a deeper and darker layer. And now we have again, like a man says, oh, fake news. But it's funny. The guy who says that is the one who's promoting the most fake news. Let's be honest. The United States of America is in danger. And it is up to each and every one of us to go back to our books and re-examine and study what it is that the founders of the United States had in mind. They had in mind a true democracy. They had in mind an idea that every single, each individual person has certain inalienable, universal human rights. And we have to pursue those, otherwise we will lose our freedom, our liberty, and everything that we value. In a fascist society, in a society where there is an authoritarian dictator, somebody who's an autocrat, somebody who wants to impose his way on others, everybody is poor, everybody is broke, everybody is subservient. Any money you may have doesn't really belong to you. It belongs to the leader of that fascist society and his clique. So let's stop this fascism now, please. And the first step is to vote the right way. Remember, the United States of America used to be known throughout the world as a bastion of liberty and freedom, democracy, the rights of the majority as well as the minority to live in peace and prosperity. The European Union is a project for peace and prosperity. It is not perfect. It has been corrupted. It is now about to be reformed, hopefully for the better. But there are dangers. Ultranationalist, fascist, racist people want to undermine our societies because they believe that by rushing back into the dark caves of ignorance that they can then protect their interests best. It's a bunch of hogwash. We have to have a world eventually in which all humanity respects this single planet as what it is. One giant biosphere, one Gaia. We all live on this planet together. There are no borders when it comes to pollution, chemical disasters, radioactive disasters. And we certainly have no borders when it comes to international trade, business, etc. But we do need to have human rights respected by everybody. And there are major powers in this world that do not care about human rights because they serve a very few, the interests of a very few. So I'm asking you, as my fellow Americans, study about what ethics is. Learn about Baruch Spinoza. Read The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's a great book. Study about democracy, the Constitution of the United States. Look deeper into it. Those people in the Supreme Court, some of them, who think that they represent the Constitution, are lying. I won't name them. You can find out for yourself. Let's be honest. Our country is being taken over by a very few whose interests are not yours and mine. Certainly not interested in another strong middle class. And it is the middle class, an educated middle class, that can best make America peaceful and prosperous again. I wish you well. This is the Free Advice Man, the philosopher of ethics, Jean-Pierre Ady Fenyo, speaking from Brussels. Have a very good night and good luck.